Welcome back. E-payment within the financial inclusion strategy is our topic tonight. Joining me is Mr. Hany Abou-El-Fotouh, economic expert. Once again, a pleasure having you. Let's start by shedding light on e-payment within the financial inclusion strategy.
Perhaps I would like to start with defining what is financial inclusion,
Right.
And make it simple for for everyone to understand what is meant by financial inclusion. Very simply, it means that the financial services should be made available to different segments in the society who were not dealing with the financial sector before, who don't have banking account. It is not necessarily that all banks and financial institutions should build an outlet or a branch in every square meter in the country. On the contrary, the concept is to make use of the financial technology, the fintech, and develop products and services and channels that makes the use of the financial products and services available for everyone at affordable prices with the same quality that is being offered to the conventional banking consumers. So if we talk about financial inclusion, we need to focus more on how the financial system should rely more heavily on the modern financial technologies to develop applications and payment portals, and particularly making the e-payments as convenient and simple as possible for everyone.
All right, we'll get to that in a moment, but in order to delve into the financial inclusion strategy a little bit more, doesn't it also serve the purpose of seeing your economy, seeing how your economy is moving, especially with the huge amounts that we see in the informal sector?
This is actually one of the important areas that financial inclusions focus on, is how to merge the informal sector into the formal sector, onto the formal economy in the country, because the informal sector it accounts for nearly 40% of all businesses in Egypt, taking place in Egypt, and this sector doesn't actually deal with the conventional banking and financial institutions because of the lack of documentations and the technology as well. If we offer them simplified or simple means of dealing, making the relationship more convenient for them by offering them less rigid documentation requirement, if we offer them convenient technology, this would help in the financial inclusion and getting them into the formal economy.
Tax incentivization?
Not necessarily, because tax, of course, tax is important, but the informal sector, they don't actually pay tax. And 2 years ago, if my memory serves me right, the government initiated an initiative to offer an incentive waiving taxes for 5 years. And as well as simplifying the requirements for starting a relationship with the banking system.
All right, so when we talk about e-payments within the financial inclusion strategy, what does that entail?
E-payments entail that transfer of funds by electronic means or by smartphones, and making this technology available to everyone in a very simple way. So if we leverage of the banking system and the financial system leverage on the financial technology to develop applications on smartphones and e-payment gateways that are convenient for the use of everyone. This will facilitate in increasing the number of those segments who were not dealing before with the formal with the banking sector and financial institutions. So if we make the e-payments faster, simple, cheaper, this would ensure that more segments in the society would deal with the banking and financial institutions more conveniently.
But you're not only talking about buying through the internet, you're talking about moving money electronically. So e-payments can also include that?
Definitely. E-payments will help in facilitating and accelerating the rate of e-commerce. So, and the report which we just listened to in a few minutes ago explained that during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the number of payments, e-payments, raised significantly because people found that there is an alternative and convenient way to make financial transactions without the need to go to branches of the bank in the banking system. So the more the government and the financial institutions invest in developing or leveraging on modern technology and financial technology, the more acceleration will happen in the e-commerce.
All right, here you're talking about fintech, and we need to delve into that. But first of all, let me go back a little bit and say, to highlight e-payments again, it's not only a matter of buying through the internet, it's not a matter of transferring funds through banks. There's something called an electronic wallet, which is quite fascinating. Now you can, instead of going to your own bank to get money, to get cash, you can even get money from a gas station. Would you highlight a little bit on the different forms of e-payments?
E-payments actually includes several means. It's more than transferring funds from account to accounts. It includes payment through the e-payment gateways, including the online banking, internet banking. It includes the e-wallets, the use of debit card, credit card, charge cards. All these are means for individuals to use.
In the old days, we used to hear about credit cards and debit cards. Now you're talking to me about electronic wallets. How do I use an electronic wallet?
Electronic wallet actually is a virtual wallet which is charged or funded with electronic units from a bank account. Okay. So
from a credit card, from
or
a debit card.
A debit card or a credit card. But initially, if I want to issue a credit card or a debit card, I must have had a relationship with a bank.
You must have an account, right.
Okay. So if I have a debit card, a charge card, a prepaid card, I can use this card to charge or fund a virtual wallet. And through this virtual wallet, I can exercise many financial transactions like utility payments, like buying from e-stores and paying for utilities, making life more easier than the way we used to in the old days. Maybe in the 5 years ago, we didn't have wallets as compared to these days. These days, Egypt is very aggressive on issuing e-wallets, and probably Egypt has more than 15 million wallets while Bahrain has issued 4 million wallets and Saudi Arabia 1 million wallets. So
But
Egypt is taking...
But you can't make this comparison because of the population. It depends on the population, each country's population.
And that's why Egypt is ranking...
percentage within that population.
Yes, exactly. But
let me ask you another thing. The pandemic, with its dire negative effects, yet it was a booster for the penetration of e-payments and fintech during such a short time. So if we wanted to achieve such a penetration within normal times, it would have taken us
10 years at least.
At least. And this happened in 1 year or a little more.
Exactly. And it's expected to accelerate in the coming years. This actually was transparent in the MasterCard New Payment Index. It is a report that was issued recently showing the preferences of Egyptian consumers to use the different e-payment channels, including the cryptocurrencies. So,
which is banned here in Egypt.
Of course,
and in
it is
many
banned.
countries.
It's still banned, and the Central Bank of Egypt has issued several warnings for not using cryptocurrencies. But still, this index shows that at least 94% of Egyptian consumers are ready to explore emerging methods of e-payments in the coming year.
What are the main highlights of such a report?
The main highlights of this report, actually, I summarized some important and interesting findings in this report. For example, 94% of consumers in Egypt will consider using at least one emerging payment method, such as the contactless or QR codes. Also, 72% of Egyptians are shopping more online since the start of the pandemic. And that is very clear because of the restrictions and social distancing requirements. Egyptian consumers had to find an alternative way, and such an increase was very evident. 57% of consumers are beginning to use online banking services, and that it would have taken years for Egyptian consumers to try and test the online banking. Maybe thanks to the pandemic for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 62 of those surveyed tried new payment method that they wouldn't have tried before. All these findings actually indicate that the pandemic, despite the negative impact and downside of the pandemic, the good thing here is Egyptian consumers are rethinking about using the modern financial technology in order to execute financial transactions, and this would eventually help in boosting financial inclusion.
They say that needs are the mother of all inventions,
Certainly.
as they
Certainly.
say. And certainly what we are witnessing nowadays is an encouragement for such innovations. You see it in fintech, you see it even in not only in shopping online, but also in buying from stores without having the need to step out of your car and go into a shop. Now you can order, and the shopkeeper would come out with the product, give it to you in your car, which is another application which I discovered a few weeks ago.
And the contactless cards.
And the contactless cards, but those are in Europe for
some time. But in Egypt, it's new.
It just started. But the concept of contactless also promotes it serves another purpose,
Hygienic.
which is, of course, hygienic, but also it decreases corruption. because you don't have to be in contact with an employee in any institution. When you purchase online, when you finish a service online, there's less contact with other people, therefore decreases corruption, which is one of your main strategic aims for the development of any country. Would you agree?
Certainly. Not only with the contactless cards, but with most of the e-payment methods, because there is no direct relationship between the service provider and the consumer. And so there is no way that cash is evil, actually. And I would also say that cash is evil if the government, most of the governments around the world and policymakers try to convert their societies to cashless societies, or societies that are less dependent on cash, because cash is being used for the proceeds, to deal with the proceeds of crimes and bribery. So if we deal with less cash, we
That's
actually...
the dark economy.
Yeah. We deal with, we stop or slow down the crime.
Since you talked about government, what would you say are the main highlights of the government's efforts to promote e-payment?
In fact, Central Bank of Egypt last year, since the pandemic, issued several measures that boost or promote e-payments and the move towards cashless society. For example, in February of this year, the Central Bank of Egypt issued an initiative for small businesses to help them to build the online payment gateways and the infrastructures for the QR codes without charges. And this, of course, this is very important to boost the e-payments and e-commerce. Last year, the Central Bank of Egypt and the Federation of Egyptian Banks jointly have launched an initiative to educate the society about using the point of sales in different outlets. And they offered merchants...
That's what they call POS machines, right?
Yeah, the small device. And they offered the point of sale machines for free for retailers in order to encourage them to use e-payments instead of cash. So this campaign actually was very active in the media for some time to educate the society that there are merits for using e-payments and the point of sale. Also, the government, the Ministry of Finance, since May 2019, are requiring all payments to be above £500 to be executed by one of the electronic means. And for all payments of government dues, they are now being accepted using the point of sale. So it is an important element here.
And the charges have been waived in terms of transferring money from an account to an account, internal
since March
money
last year.
Right. And this has been extended as well. So this is is that part of the central bank's efforts?
It's part of the central bank efforts to relieve the financial burdens on consumers.
Right.
To alleviate the impact of the financial impact of COVID-19.
And it's continuing so far?
Yes.
Right. So what would you say are the main challenges facing the increased penetration of e-payments and achieving the objectives of financial inclusion?
First of all, the culture of the society. The culture of the society here, particularly in urban areas, in rural areas, and they still prefer to deal in cash. It will take some time to convince or to change the mindset of people to move to electronic payments.
The informal economy at large, would reject formalizing the process.
Definitely.
Because it's not in their interest unless you enforce them to change their practices, if you will.
In fact, giving them incentives is the best way, not using the rigid enforcement measures, because it is a huge sector and they need to be integrated into the formal economy using reasonable incentives. The other challenge I would see here is the technical infrastructure and the internet speed. In order to accelerate the rate of financial inclusion and the rate of e-payments, you must have a very high standards of internet speed. Egypt last year ranked, I think, achieved a better ranking than the year before in terms of the internet speed, and that was one of the hinders that slows down the e-payment processes in Egypt.
So the stability and speed.
Stability and speed. Okay, in general, because there are other technical aspects which I'm not really a technical person.
So you also need to enhance the infrastructure, increase competitiveness, and private sector participation within the process.
Yes, give incentives to the small businesses to use the point of sale. And that's the Central Bank of Egypt and
there's a campaign to promote such practices.
Yes, but still there are more steps to be done in this area. Also, the number of government offices around Egypt is very huge. You need to ensure that all government offices, even in small places, they have the infrastructure and the internet access and the point of sale, POS machines everywhere, even in small villages. Okay, this is a great challenge for the government to achieve, to deal with.
Well,
the number of bank accounts finally is the number of.
But with the cellular data coverage, you don't have a problem with the dissemination of POS machines throughout the country.
I hope that really works, but I'm sure that it is a real challenge because.
But POS machines means that the customer has to have a card. Right?
Not necessarily, because if you are going to say recharge or pay an electricity bill at the outlet of the local electricity office, you have your own cash and you go to the electricity office, and instead of paying cash, you have two options: either to pay cash or to use a prepaid card, or a wallet, or a debit card. So the issue here is to make the prepaid card, if a person doesn't have a bank account, at least he should have access to prepaid cards, which should be made available in several outlets.
Right. Okay, to wrap up, in order to have higher penetration levels, and in order to cover the challenges that you refer to, you need investors. Are we attractive for local and international investors in this sector?
In this sector, yes, I would say yes. It is a green area, and it is very rewarding. Egypt's population is more than 100 million, and most of the Egyptian individuals don't have a banking account. So investments in the fintech sector is very rewarding, with the government giving incentives and continuing its efforts to accelerate the rate of financial inclusions. It is a very good opportunity for investors to invest in this area.
Are we competitive compared to the region and our competition?
And I don't have actually enough information about the competitiveness, but the matter here is the government is doing its best in different areas to make the business environment competitive for investors in many areas.
Okay,
not particularly the telecom area, but as well it is in many areas.
You have the market, very big population, therefore very big consumer capabilities, consumption capabilities. You have youth, and you have capable youth, innovative youth. Are those
human capital? You have
human capital.
You have your human
right.
capital.
Your human capital. You are developed in terms of call centers and whatnot. So, with this asset, if you will, do you need to capitalize on it with legislations to promote further, to promote your attractiveness further?
I think the legislation is not the core issue here, because of the current legislative infrastructure is adequate.
It's adequate.
Yeah. I think providing incentives for investors, getting rid of the red tapes would be the key issue for investors to pump money.
Red tape. Would
No.
you like to underline that? Explain that a little bit?
Still, the bureaucracy, although the government has done great efforts in eliminating the bureaucracies, but still, on grounds, I see there is still some bureaucracies that would discourage investors or making the investment decision a bit slower. But I think the government is taking initiatives. It's not just making legislative infrastructure right, but again, it relies on educating or training the employees in the government offices to be less bureaucratic and open-minded in doing or delivering the services.
That is being done in terms of the government officials that will be providing services in the new administrative capital. Do you,
Definitely. By all means.
Do you foresee that this will extend to the remainder?
I hope so.
Right.
I hope so, but it's a matter of time.
Where's the private sector contribution in all of this?
Private sector has always been playing a good role and taking a good role in this area in investment, and the government is giving the private sector incentives to inject money into projects and create jobs. And I see that the more the government provide incentives, the more the local investors would be ready to take these opportunities and expand their businesses and establishing new businesses.
When you started at the beginning of the show and you said the numbers in Saudi Arabia and in Bahrain, so where would you place us in the Arab region? And then in Africa, because Africa has success stories when you talk about electronic wallets and e-payments.
As rightfully said, Africa has success stories. Maybe 10 years ago, because they had the poor banking system, the governments there made efforts to join with the private sector and telecommunication companies to use fintech in order to offer the services to everywhere, to citizens everywhere in the country, and they were very successful. As for the Arab world, Egypt ranks on top of the Arab countries in using the e-payments and the e-wallets, and the figures which I started in the beginning of the show. We have nearly 130,000 outlets for the e-payment services, and the number of e-wallets in Egypt is nearly 15 million wallets, as compared to Bahrain 5 million wallets and Saudi Arabia 1 million wallets, making Egypt on top of the Arab world.
When you talk about enhanced e-payment systems, you're not talking only IT infrastructure and financial technology. You're also talking logistics. This is a sector that is directly affected by such a process. And I'll give you an example. When you talk about buying online, you need somebody to get you the products to where you are. So is there an integration process between the different outlets, if you will, the different sectors? Is there a coordination between sectoral development?
I'm sure there is a coordination in the sectorial development, and the more e-commerce transactions are being made, the more courier companies are delivering services, and the activity of the courier services has witnessed an increase in development in the last 5 years. Even you see that this is a new area for the private sector, that they found it very attractive, leveraging from the increase and enhancement in the e-commerce area.
All within the 2030 strategy.
Definitely.
Right?
Yes. So moving Egypt to the financial inclusion, the digitization of government services, they all serve in achieving the objectives of the 2030. So Egypt has done a lot of efforts in this area, and it continues to develop its efforts to achieve the objectives.
Are you surprised at the progress made within such a short time, or did you expect more?
In fact, I surprised because the acceleration was unexpected, and as I said in the beginning, the COVID-19, despite its downsides, it has helped in pushing the society to explore more ways or means of e-payments, and that would have taken years. I hope that the fintech sector in Egypt would find the way to develop more applications and solutions to put Egypt in the forefront in this area.
And certainly the challenges have made us explore our potential more and more. Mr. Hany Abou-El-Fotouh, economic and banking expert, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Thank you for joining us, and I take the opportunity to wish you, your families, Egyptians, and people around the world a very happy Eid.